stop tests in the atmosphere. But tests continued nonetheless, as more nations joined the nuclear club in a rapid proliferation. France was there by 1960, China by 1964. Soon India, Pakistan, Israel, South Africa were all working on secret bomb programs. China achieved the H-bomb in 1967.
This is a gigantic success of Mao Zedong's thought. This is a gigantic success of the General Line. Long live the Chinese Communist Party. Long live Chairman Mao.
But the propaganda battle had another side, as nations competed in their claims to be using atoms for peace. More and more power stations were commissioned.
Many years ago, our first knowledge of atomic energy came from a horrible explosion of a bomb that killed hundreds of thousands of people. No one imagined at the time that the atom would one day start working for people. This happened in the Soviet Union at the first nuclear-fueled power station not far from Moscow.
The Soviets built 13 power stations in 8 years. Many were close to major towns: Smolensk, Chernobyl near Kiev, and Leningrad.
The Lenin nuclear power station in Leningrad. Each of its 4 turbines has a 1 million kilowatt capacity. All the equipment is Soviet-made. The station is absolutely safe for personnel and for nearby residents. This is where the power workers live. No dust, no smog, no soot, and a powerful nuclear power station nearby.
In the West, a trusting public accepted the proposition that nuclear power could take over from other fuels.
Formed in the deep recesses eons ago, our oil is being consumed at a heart-sickening rate. We must develop more natural resources. The nation needs more nuclear power plants. Reactors have proven to be safe, reliable, economical.
The public was persuaded that investment in the nuclear future was essential. Billions of dollars were spent building power stations. By 1980, 260 reactors were in service in 24 countries. And billions more were still being spent on the nuclear arms race. Each side now had thousands of missiles waiting to be fired at each other's cities from deep silos.
Guidance and Channel 6. Warhead.
Each new system was more complex than the last.
Re-entry. Arming and fusing. Channel 7.
But as the costs rose and the Cold War thawed, the superpowers realized they had to call a halt. In 1987, Gorbachev and Reagan signed an arms reduction treaty.
Our peoples, for too long, have been both the masters and the captives of a deadly arms race. This situation is not preordained and not part of some inevitable course of history.
While politicians had tried to do something about the fear of nuclear war, people had growing concerns about the nuclear peace. Fears that the power stations could leak radiation grew after the 3 Mile Island accident in 1979. A new generation was less willing to believe the experts. In the West, each new project was opposed, although scientists continued to say that the fears were unfounded. The East allowed no demonstrations, but it was there that the nuclear age was about to go critical. The Chernobyl reactor was 60 miles from Kiev. Most of its workers lived in the town of Pripyat, half a mile from the plant, which supplied electricity to much of the Western Soviet Union. In April 1986, the accident they'd been told was impossible happened. An explosion blew the roof off the main reactor, and a major emergency began. A helicopter pilot saw what they all feared most.
Центральный зал блока номер 4. Включи! Выше! Держи это место! Держи! Держи! Где дым идет? Где дым? Вот так, держи!
The orange glow led scientists to think a reactor meltdown was underway. The so-called China syndrome. The Soviet government tried to hush the incident up. In a desperate race against time, engineers worked to put out the fire and discover what was happening at the heart of the reactor. They cut a hole through the 10-foot concrete lining. And one person had to do the most dangerous job of all. Go right underneath the reactor and see if the radioactive core was burning through. Veniamin Pryanichnikov volunteered. When he climbed through, he didn't know what he'd find.
When I pulled open the cover, I felt something pouring on my head. All I was wearing was a thin protective cap. I immediately knew I was in a catastrophic situation, and I was probably finished. I shouted to the people who were with me to hand me the meter so I could measure the radiation intensity and know how long I had to live, 1 day or 2. The meter showed about 200 units, maybe 250, but no more than that. It was then I realized that I was all right. I was alive.
Though an actual meltdown hadn't occurred, there had been a massive leak of radiation. A complete evacuation of a 20-mile zone around Chernobyl was ordered.
На Чернобыльской атомной электростанции в городе Припяти складывается неблагоприятная радиационная обстановка. Сегодня, 27 апреля, начиная с 14:00 часов, возникает необходимость провести временную эвакуацию жителей города в близлежащие населенные пункты Киевской области.
As the families left, young army conscripts were brought in to help clear up. With no special protective clothing available, they had to improvise. The level of radioactivity was so great that each man would be allowed to work only for a single 2-minute period. They'd have to rush in and rush out. Up on the reactor roof, they had to clear the highly radioactive debris blown out of the core. Valery Starodumov led the operation.
The previous group of soldiers had removed a piece of graphite from the reactor, under which they found part of one of the fuel rods. This semicircular fragment had to be picked up and thrown away. Here it is. The soldier is carrying it along with other debris and is going to dump it over the edge. All this rubble on the ground is left over from the explosion of the reactor's graphite core. The soldiers are having to walk over these radioactive bricks. It's clear it was everyone's duty to reduce the dangers after the explosion. I'm the father of two, and I knew that the accident was particularly risky for our children because of the long-term consequences.